Good morning, everyone. It's 10 a.m. Thank you for joining us again for Part 3 of our Mature Worker Program Virtual Job Readiness Series. We're excited to get started today. I'd like to introduce our panelist for today, Mr. Kenneth Johnson. Kenneth Johnson is the president of East Coast Executives, which is a distinguished diversity recruiter and executive search professional firm with over 20 years experience delivering talent acquisition solutions. At East Coast Executives, Mr. Johnson drives business results for clients through creative recruiting strategies, global sourcing programs, and he is currently ranked the diversity recruiter, the #1 diversity recruiter by Google search firms. East Coast Executives was started in 2001 and is named one of the top executive search recruiting firms in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. For the last 3 years, the Philadelphia Business Journal has named East Coast Executives as a top executive search firm and top minority-owned business beginning in 2013. And just on a personal note, Kenneth Johnson is a big fan of the Urban League. He's a friend of the Philadelphia Urban League especially. He's worked with the Urban League of Philadelphia with their job and career seekers, supporting their efforts for job searching, resume writing, career coaching, career mapping, and connecting with employers. Kenneth Johnson has helped service over 2,000 job seekers and assisted with over 500 placements. So we're very excited to have Kenneth with us today. He's going to get started with his presentation on resumes, cover letters, and interviews. So Ken, I'm going to give it over to you, and you can take it away.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. Really excited to share some information here with all the attendees. So I thank you so very much for giving us this opportunity. All right. So there are 3 key components that we here at East Coast Executives, call parts of your career toolbox. And I want to change this here. Yeah, so there are parts of your career toolbox. So today, I'll share some insight, tips, tricks of the trade, and resources that should assist you in navigating what we call the new age job search. So most of you have probably worked in the past, and you've experienced what we refer to as a career. So congratulations to you. You possess the one thing that you need to successfully start a second career. So in our Career Quest program here at East Coast Executives, we teach career seekers ways to leverage that prior experience, your career, and to turn it into the desirable hard and soft skills that employers value. So leading to what we call your second act. So a second act, just like in a play, a life has a second act, and yours does too. So the way we kind of position it is the definition of a second act is something that a person devotes his life to later in life, after retiring or quitting their original occupation. So with that being said, intermission is over. So let's get started on what we believe to be your second act. So typically in today's world, and I'll kind of go back to speak a little bit about the second act. So as I was preparing for this presentation, I started thinking about my father. And my father spent 30 years basically selling candy. 27 of that was with M&M Mars. So he was part of a massive restructuring, and he was forced to retire. So he came to me and asked would I come up with a resume, would I do his resume for him. So and this kind of made me start thinking about people that are in that situation where, maybe they've worked one place or in one industry for quite a long period of time, and now it's time to transition into a different career path, and they haven't done a resume in a while, and they're not familiar with how job search works currently, and they just need information. They have a ton of great skills that would be desirable for most employers, but they don't know how to leverage those skills. So in working with my father on his resume, we kind of just started looking at some of the transferable skills he had and some of the things he was passionate about. I think his first job, he took the job, and I'm not sure he was necessarily passionate about selling candy. I think he ended up being that way, but initially I just think it was a job, and he kind of ran with it. He was extremely good and extremely accomplished there, but some of his passions were a little different than what his job was. So for his second act, we decided to look at things that he had interest in, and moving forward, how he would identify opportunities that he may consider for a second act. So he ended up transitioning into a position with the local housing authority there. And he saw that they saw value in his transferable skills. And he also had what we call a story. He grew up in the same public housing authority that he ended up working for, and he ended up becoming board chair there. But it was a great fit because, one, he was passionate about the issues of housing, and two, he had a background in sales and marketing, so he was able to influence stakeholders and able to really make some changes. So there was a definite connection. And what happens is, as mature workers, we're of the belief that in order to be successful in your job search, it's going to be really important for one to make a connection. So either making a connection with a person or a company. And I always tell my job seekers that, a company has never hired anyone. It's always a person hiring another person. So if you kind of focus in on relationships within your network and things of that nature, we think you'll be successful with making the actual connection. But here's where the challenge lies. With a lot of people, the challenge lies with what we call the gatekeeper. So in today's world of applicant tracking systems and talent management systems, you must customize your resume. So for our purposes and for this particular presentation, we're going to touch base on three particular things: the resume, of course, the cover letters, and interviewing. And it basically comes down to, are you really prepared? So when we speak of the gatekeeper in today's world, we're speaking of the applicant tracking system and our talent management system. But let me step back and explain what an applicant tracking and or talent management system, what they actually are. So when you apply to a position or a job opening, they often ask you to apply online. The process of entering your information online is what we consider to be the gatekeeper. The applicant tracking system serves as the gatekeeper. Now, for some people, they view these systems as basically a black hole. What happens is they apply to a position online, and a lot of times they never hear back from the company and or representative. They may receive a standard email response stating, your resume has been received, and regretfully, we have decided to go with another candidate that more closely matches our requirements. Many of you have probably experienced this scenario, if you've even heard back from a company at all. So it basically feels like you've dropped your resume into a black hole. And so that's where that term comes from. For us, it's almost, a roll of the dice, because with the applicant tracking systems, they actually eliminate somewhere in the neighborhood of 75% of the candidates that submit their jobs into the portal. So 75% of the people that apply to jobs online, their resumes are eliminated or purged out by the actual applicant tracking system. So it's almost like a roll of the dice. But there are definitely ways that you can break the odds and win. So that's what we want to focus on here. How can you change that process from being a virtual black hole or a roll of the dice, and how can you kind of leverage the things that you have to make this an actual real opportunity? So it starts with your resume. And for us, with your resume, the focus revolves around 3 points. Your resume format. Formatting is extremely important to the applicant tracking systems. And I don't want to get into too much recruiter lingo, but a standard Word text format is the format you want to go with. You really want to avoid PDFs, and that's basically a picture of your resume. You want to avoid things like that. And you want to avoid fancy formats. You don't want your picture on your resume and things of that nature. Just a standard, simple, clean, well-read document. It's also really important that your resume consists of keywords. So keywords is a terminology that kind of came about, as people started doing Google searches and things of that nature. So when we speak of keywords, all we're talking about are words that are important to the actual company. So when you read a position description, so if a company if you're reading a position description, they'll have what they call keywords, things that are important for that particular job. So let's just say it's something as simple as, say, typing, or inbound phone calls, customer service. Those will be the keywords. You want to have those keywords on your resume, because ultimately the applicant tracking system is reading over your resume and pulling out those keywords to see if you're a match for the actual position. And also, another important thing with your resume is content. Myself personally, I think it's really great to focus in on accomplishments. Of course, you want to speak about the task that you've done at a particular job, but for mature workers, I think it's really important to focus in on accomplishments, focus in on wins, focus in on things that you've achieved while working in a particular role or at a particular company in a particular position. That's extremely important. So I think if you focus in on those things, you'll have some success. So I know it seems a little different to share it in this format, but I want to show you what I'm speaking of, because here's a quick fact. The average recruiter spends 6 to 8 seconds reviewing your resume. So we put all of this time into creating this perfect, or what we believe to be a perfect resume, but the recruiters are only spending 6 to 8 seconds reviewing your resume. So that's really not a lot of time to get your point across. So it's extremely important that you use your 6 to 8 seconds to make a favorable impression. So here's the way that we kind of work through our process in assisting people in making that favorable impression. So I have a standard resume here. So this is the resume of someone we'll call Jane Doe. So as you'll see at the resume, at the top of the resume, we actually list the phone number, and we list an email account. Now, an email account is really important because most companies use the email signature as a way to track you through their system. Also, because an email address is going to be a unique address to you. But also, I think for mature workers, it's good to, if possible, to show you're not averse to technology. So if you can show here that you have a LinkedIn account, or even a Twitter account, or even a Facebook account, if you put that information here as a means for them to contact you or to kind of find out a little more about you, one, it shows an openness that you're open to sharing your professional skill set, but also it's a very passive tool, or at least a passive point, to show that you have embraced technology. You're not shying away from technology. So for a lot of mature workers, that's the stereotype, that maybe they're not that familiar with technology. So this actually shows, hey, listen, this is the person that actually embraces technology and is using some of the tools that are out here to leverage their career. So that's a key part, and that comes in the first section of the resume. Also here you'll see that we have what we call a positioning statement. So we have here customer service sales professional. Often it's going to be really important to have that at the top of your resume. What happens with applicant tracking systems, they weigh the information at the top of your resume as the most important information. So it actually takes a higher precedence than some of the other information that will be lower in your resume. And that makes sense. So in this particular document, we actually have positioned this person as a customer service sales professional. So someone reading this resume will immediately go to this section. It's right in the center, it's right at the top, and say, oh, okay, this person must be a customer service pro. So if they decide to read on in the resume, we quickly leverage who they are professionally with a quick summary of their skills. But also in this section here, we've charted office management, consultative selling, data entry, customer service. These are some of the skill sets that we took from the position description. So we know this stuff is important to the hiring managers. Therefore, when they read the resume and give us that 6 to 8 seconds, they're going to see this stuff initially, and hopefully they'll be encouraged to move on. We've also included what we call a technical and soft skills section here. Let's see, it's right here actually, technical and soft skills. So if you have some computer skills that you want to leverage, or if you have some general skills that maybe might be of importance to an employer, so here on this one, there's basic first aid and things of that nature. We put that stuff in there because that may be something that was listed on the position description that doesn't necessarily track as a skill set, but it's definitely a soft skill or an acquired skill that you want to leverage to make yourself a little more, I guess, a little more present in the process. All right? So that's kind of the resume that we follow. The resume, once again, is going to be the thing. It's a marketing document. So the resume is just a document that markets you. It's almost equivalent to having a great elevator pitch. That's your commercial. And now that you've said who you are, you want to have a marketing tool that can sit with the actual hiring manager and or recruiter that leaves you in a favorable light. All right? So as we spoke about, there being three things that we wanted to touch on. So that's the actual resume piece. Now we'll go on to what we call the cover letter. So a lot of people think that recruiters and hiring managers don't read cover letters. And I'll be completely honest, a lot of them don't. But there's a reason for that. Cover letters tend to be kind of mundane. People follow the same pattern with cover letters. And I'm going to suggest as a mature worker, you use a different process with your cover letters. I think you want to use your cover letters as really a bridge. You want to bridge the gap to your success, right? So if you're using a cover letter, which I do suggest you do, it's going to involve that you do some homework. So I set up kind of a program here that I believe will be of benefit to people that choose to kind of go out and use a cover letter to connect with an employer or someone within their network. So it's going to look like this. We have a cover letter that we call a unique value cover letter. So in this unique value cover letter, the one thing we do first, if possible, we position a reference. We position a referral. If we know somebody that works at that company that's willing to make that introduction, or at least someone whose name we can use, that's a huge plus because we're making a mutual connection. We also suggest that you share your connection to the company. And after I go over these points, I'll kind of share what this looks like in a letter format, just in speaking through the process. We also suggest that you display your research and knowledge of either the company and or industry. So if you have a particular knowledge of a company and you want to share that briefly, but also if you have knowledge about the industry in general, from prior work histories and things of that nature, you definitely want to share that. And then hopefully you'll be comfortable enough offering a brief success story, and then you'll be ready to close the deal. So let's kind of take a look at what that looks like. So if you're going to position a reference, it may sound like, you know, dear Mr. Smith. Also, let me step back a little. I also suggest that you refrain from sending a cover letter to a random person. I don't want you to title it "To Whom It May Concern" or to HR or to talent acquisition. I always want you to make an effort to position your cover letter to an actual person. Sometimes that takes a little work. Sometimes you have to speak to people in your network. Sometimes you just have to make a phone call to find out, I don't know, who the customer service manager is. Once you get that information, if you can send your cover letter directly to that person, it puts you miles above the rest, because believe me, I get cover letters every day, and people are sending them to attention recruiter, attention human resources. So my preference is to see something that says attention Mr. Johnson, and that's automatically going to catch my attention. So as you position a reference, it's going to sound something like this. Dear Mr. Smith, my name is Jane Doe, and I was referred to you by Mr. Kenneth Johnson. So now you're positioning a reference. You're saying, I know Kenneth Johnson, and he referred me to you. Or you may want to do it in a different way. You may want to say, you know, dear Mr. Smith, my name is Jane Doe, and for several years I've been a customer at your store. That's where you start sharing your connection to the company. Once you share that, a person's kind of, you know, they actually want to read more. They want to know what the connection is to the store. So you want to display your research and knowledge. So your next paragraph may read something like, congratulations on the opening of your new location. As with most new openings, I would imagine you were swamped with new orders. So now you're commending them on their success, and you're showing that you're familiar, that you've done some research and you're knowledgeable because you know they opened a new location. So it could be opening a new location, launching a new product, whatever that is that connects you to the actual person and or business. And then you may want to use the next paragraph to offer a brief success story. So it would go something like, I've worked in the past as a sales associate at a large retailer and was part of a team that opened 2 new locations simultaneously. So now you showed some brief success. You don't want to get into too much, especially as a mature worker. Sometimes we see that people typically want to share the numbers of years of experience and things of that nature. This is just a letter that's kind of almost like an appetizer. We want them to bite on this with the hopes of getting more information down the road. So you might want to close that out with, I would welcome the opportunity to share the secrets of our success in opening up new locations over a cup of coffee, my treat. So now you're trying to close the deal, because ultimately what you want to do is make a connection with this particular person. So if I read that letter in its entirety, it would kind of read something like this. Dear Mr. Smith, my name is Jane Doe, and for several years I've been a customer of your store. Congratulations on the opening of your new location. As with most new openings, I would imagine you are swamped with new orders. I've worked in the past as a sales associate at a large retailer and was part of a team that opened two new locations simultaneously. I would welcome the opportunity to share the secrets of our success over a cup of coffee, my treat. So now the person, you found out kind of where their pain is. You know, if they opened a new location or if they're really busy, they may need help in the customer service area. So with that being said, they may want to have a conversation with you because you possess the experience that they're looking for. And typically you'll attach your resume just to kind of position yourself for that particular opportunity, even though you've already applied online and you've probably attached your resume and or shared your work history in that process. And that's kind of the way we do our unique value cover letters, with the hopes of granting either a personal meeting with a person or an actual interview. So for mature workers, once again, it's just really important that you make that connection. The only way to overcome bias in employment is to make a connection. So we believe that a direct cover letter that's a unique value cover letter will show that you're a person that they could use to kind of alleviate some of their pain, and that's what we're attempting to do with that type of format. So once you've secured that and you have an opportunity to speak to the hiring manager and you've closed the deal, hopefully from that interaction or from the cover letter in general, you'll get the opportunity to interview. So most talent acquisition professionals, most recruiters are using what we call behavioral-based interview techniques. So that's just a long word or a long statement for tell me about a time when. So typically recruiters will ask you to tell you about a time when. So tell me about a time when you had a large workload and you needed to get it done by, the end of the week. You had a timeline set. How did you handle that and what did you do? That's what it would sound like. Or tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult customer. How did you resolve that situation? So that's the tell me about a time scenario. And the reason people do that, the reason recruiters approach their interviewing in that fashion is because with the behavioral-based interview technique, they're basically looking at past behavior and attempting to predict future behavior. So if you have a success story or an accomplishment from your past, that in turn should probably be how you'll handle things in the future. So with that being said, that kind of pacifies their curiosity. How would this person handle something here at my company, here with my team? And that's what you want to share. So the best way to accomplish that or to answer those questions would be to use what we call the STAR technique. So the STAR technique is really simple. And the reason they call it the STAR technique because it uses 4 points. First, it speaks of the situation. Detail the background. What was the situation? The situation was I had a customer who wasn't happy with their billing, right? So they speak about where and when. So when I was a customer service rep at XYZ company, I had a customer that wasn't happy with their billing. So the task, describe the challenge and the expectation, what needed to be done. So at your particular company, they probably want happy customers. So they're going to look for you in your role to resolve with the challenge and meet the expectation of the customer. So what needed to be done? So the task basically is that you needed to resolve the situation. And then they want to speak about an action. The action is a little different in the process because this is kind of where your own personal touch will come in. With the action, you're going to elaborate on what it is that you did, what tools you used to resolve this situation. So, in essence, you may have had the option as a customer service rep to offer to basically explain where the new charges came from on the bill, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you have the ability to remove some of the charges or at least even offer a discount to those charges. And that's basically the action that you took. And then after that, you'll go into the result. What was the result? Explain the results, the accomplishments, the recognitions, what you've saved. Companies are really big on, what did the person save and or earn us? You want to be able to quantify your result. So you may say in that scenario, after speaking with the customer agreed to the new billing charges based on a new package that they received, and with that being said, they were completely satisfied and they completed the customer survey. They completed a customer survey that commended us for how we handled the process. And I ended up saving the company X amount of dollars. And that's really how the STAR technique works. It's about the situation, the task, the action, and the result. And once again, the reason for that is because interviewers are of the belief that your past behavior will predict your future behavior. And the reason that kind of makes sense is because they're asking you to tell them about a time when you were successful. Tell them about a time when you had a situation that you had to show some soft skills or some unique skills that are unique to your brand and who you are in solving the problem. So that's kind of how the process goes for the actual interview. We believe that if you merge the resume techniques we spoke about with the cover letter techniques we spoke about, and then if you're successful enough to secure an interview with a particular company, we believe that if you put all of that stuff together and you use the STAR technique, that you'll be successful and you'll get hired. Now, so for mature workers, once again, we want to speak about that. If you put all of that stuff together, that's fine. But at the beginning of the day, it all comes down to opportunities. So we believe there are some great resources out here for mature workers, and it pretty much starts out with your own personal network. So your network of friends, associates, or colleagues, I don't care who it is. Everybody is a part of your network. I worked for an individual that once told me, she owned a staffing firm in Philadelphia, and she once shared with me that everyone is either a candidate or a client. And that's how I want you to look at your network. When you're out conducting your job search, anyone can help you. You never know who that person knows, but the only way they can assist you is if you share information with them and let them know that you're actually actively in a job search. Once people know, they're able to assist you. So with that being said, please work your network. Don't be afraid to let people know that you're looking for an opportunity. But not only letting them know that you're looking for an opportunity, I think it's really important that you let them know what it is that you're looking to do. Once again, this is a second act. So I suggest you do something that you're passionate about or something that you enjoy doing or at least want to do. As a mature worker, I think you have some things that you can leverage. You may have some flexibility in your scheduling. You definitely have some experience that you can leverage, and that's going to be really important. But if you can share that information with your network, I think that's the shortest line to job search success. So I've also listed some other resources here. The National Urban League Job Network, great opportunity. I know here in Philadelphia, for some of our seniors with the Urban League in general, we have companies like CVS that are very senior friendly. So some of these websites have job opportunities from companies that really are friendly to the senior population, and they're looking to leverage that population as a viable option in their employment or in their actual company culture. So once again, so we spoke about NUL Jobs Network. There's careeronestop.org, workforce50.com, retiredbrains.com. You even have seniorsforhire.org. And then this was an interesting one, youroncore.com. It has a life sciences focus, but basically they take people with about 25 years experience or more in the life sciences, and they find opportunities for them, or they at least assist them with finding opportunities. So I think there's some niche websites out there or niche job portals that actually provide a lot of information and a resource as well. And of course we have retireeworkforce.com. So I definitely suggest you leverage some of these resources, of course some of these tools to successfully navigate your job search. But I cannot stress enough how important and how valuable your personal network is to finding a job. It's all about relationships, and if you can leverage relationships, it really turns things around. I think I saw a study recently that said somewhere in the neighborhood of 66% of all, like 2 in 3 job searchers find their job through their network. So that's a very high number, and I'm prone to believe that that's definitely true and a real number. So take a look at that information, and please use those resources to navigate your search. I honestly believe that if you do that, you'll end up being hired. So, and that's the ultimate goal. We all want to be hired. So I thank everyone for participating in the call. And Dawn, I believe you're probably on the line here, so if you have any questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Ken. I think you provided such great content. We're going to jump right into questions. I'm actually going to start with a couple questions that were sent in earlier, and then I'm going to open the lines to take questions over the phone as well. This first question came from our Louisville Urban League. Someone asked the question, should they list all of the positions they've ever had to really show the breadth of their experience, or should they only list work experiences that are related to the specific position they're applying for?
Yeah, I'm definitely of the belief that you should only list relevant positions, and preferably, you know, if that relevant experience is within the last 15 years, that would even be more advantageous in my opinion. People, once again, people are looking at your resume for about 6 to 8 seconds. Yes, you know, you want to encourage them to move on and read through the entire document, but I'll be completely honest with you, some of these recruiters are swamped, and they just don't have the time to read through all the information, so just list the positions that are relevant. I think you'll benefit from doing that.
Oh, okay, great. This next question I'm going to combine with 2 questions. Our Boston Urban League asked a question about how can mature workers create a profound resume and cover letter that doesn't date them in writing or in the interview. And then our Newark Urban League, they also asked a question about, we've heard from different trainers who have indicated that the use of dates on resumes should be deleted. So what's your feedback on how to not date yourself in your resume, cover letter, or in the interview, and how factual is it to delete dates from your resume or any other information that you provide?
Okay, so let me start on the back end of that. I'm positive because I've been trained with the use of applicant tracking systems, and if you do not have dates of employment, you'll be one of those 75% that are eliminated. The applicant tracking system will purge your resume out of the actual system if you don't list dates. So if you have to apply online, I definitely recommend and suggest that you use dates. So that's that particular piece. In regards to not kind of dating yourself with the resume and cover letter, I do, you know, there are some tricks. There are some things out there. You know, a lot of people may have, you know, may not have an email address or may have references available upon request on the bottom of their resume. Some of those things are little cues that either someone hasn't taken a lot of time on their actual resume or that they're dated. Right now, people typically don't use the references. That's kind of, don't use references upon request. That's an assumed thing that if I ask you for references, you'll have that. I think within our process, if someone doesn't have an email address or something of that nature, we start to wonder, how proficient with technology are they? So I think that's something that could date somebody. But I'll be completely honest with you. Hiring is discrimination. People are looking for a certain thing, so they're discriminating against everyone that doesn't have that. So if you have the experience, and if you have a background that you've leveraged and positioned as being advantageous for the hiring manager and our company, I don't think it's going to matter, what it looks like from a date standpoint on the resume, dating yourself or leaving your age, just because if I'm looking for the skill set, that's what I want. And if I believe you can come in and be a benefit to our team or help us, be better at what we do, then I'm going to be interested. So I would just focus in on, getting your resume in the hands of the right people.
Okay, great. Thank you. And that's important to hear, because I've heard myself that it is okay to take dates off. So it's interesting to hear your perspective, especially as a staffing agency, that if you take your dates off, you might be taking yourself out of the running due to the applicant tracking system. It might kick you out before even someone has a chance to get to those 6 to 8 seconds to even review it. So that's important to hear. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, Dawn, and on the backside of that, once again, I suggest that people have, if possible, I suggest that people have multiple resumes, because you're going to customize your resume with the keywords according to what positions you're applying for. So if that's your challenge, if the date situation is a person's challenge, well, if you're granted the interview, so let's just say the resume that you submit in the applicant tracking system includes the dates, and that's fine, because that got you through the system. But in the interview, if you choose to walk into an interview with a resume that doesn't include dates and maybe it reads more like a CV, then maybe that's an approach that might make you feel more comfortable. But typically, even when you come into the interview, they have you fill out a paper application because they need your signature on some things, and they're probably going to ask you dates of employment. So I'm not sure there's really a way around it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to start by opening up the lines. Elvira from Westchester, you're able to unmute your line. Do you have any questions in your affiliate that you want to take over the phone? We'll start with you.
Okay. Resumes, do you think it would be a good idea to have them two-sided? And also, should we list volunteer activities, hobbies, education, and religion?
Definitely list volunteers, hobbies. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the other one was. I know volunteers, hobbies.
Education and religion.
Yes, also education. I would shy away from religion, just only for the reason that you typically don't want to give, that's information that you might not necessarily need to share. I'm not sure how pertinent that is to the actual job. I guess in some jobs that might be something that people need to know, but I don't know many. So I would shy away from the religious piece. As far as a two-sided resume, I would also shy away from that. I don't mind them being 2 pages. I don't even mind them being 3, but I wouldn't make it two-sided. Here's what happens. People are just used to seeing a resume being the front page, so there's a good chance that if the person doesn't flip your resume over, they may miss huge pieces of your work history. So I don't know if it's worth running the risk. And also myself personally, I write my notes on the back of resumes. So with that being said, you're taking away my notepad.
I understand that. Just for the functionality of being able to write on it. For those that still write on resumes versus they might be making notes in track changes in Word, yes, or just making notes within that applicant tracking system, that often has a notes section where they can type their notes there. So
Yes.
I'm going to take one of the questions that came through our chat window, but just as a heads up, Angel in Eastern Mass, I'm going to open your line next. So if you want to gather a question, just get that ready. So a question that came in through the chat window, someone asked a question about possibly doing a mock interview. Is it possible to try to set up a mock interview in advance, or would you recommend finding another person to set up that mock interview? How can you prepare or get some practice in for your interview?
So I guess I'm trying to figure out the question here. So well, let me say this. I'm a huge proponent of mock interviews. I actually did a mock interview session yesterday with a class that I teach. So we had 15 students do mock interviews yesterday, and they received great feedback. I'm a huge proponent of mock interviews. I'm not so sure, and I don't know if this is the piece of the question, but I'm not so sure I would seek out a mock interview with an individual that I'm attempting to gain employment with. Unless I did that through some type of program or something in that nature, that wouldn't be something I would seek out individually. I think, I don't know how that could be a mock interview, but I'm a huge proponent of mock interviews to answer the question, yes.
I understand that, and I did get clarification. The person was more so asking if you would provide mock interviews for some of our mature workers. So we'll try to work that out with you at a later date. But you know, I think that is a great opportunity. I will also offer maybe doing informational interviews. Do you have any advice or suggestions about what they are for those that don't know, and then two, how to utilize them?
Yeah, let's speak about that a little. But we'll speak about informational interviews. But I will also say to the person that requested mock interview assistance, I know the National Urban League, when they had their conference here in Philadelphia, there were probably about 50 HR professionals on board over the 3 or 4 day period doing mock interviews on the actual conference floor. It was an incredible experience for people because not only did they get to receive mock interviews, but they were able to get a resume review as well. So so you may want to look for events like that out in your community, whether they're Urban League events or some other program or process that will allow for you to get a mock interview. So I think you should do that. In regards to informational interviews, that's exactly what the unique value cover letter is looking to establish. You want to get a conversation with the person, whether it's a 15-minute conversation or a 15-minute conversation over the phone or a 15-minute conversation in person. But if you can get an informational interview with someone who is viewed as an SME, a subject matter expert in their field or with their particular organization, that is a valuable resource and tool to career search, because immediately once that interview is over, you should always ask, is there anybody else that you suggest I speak to that has information that may be of value to me? And that way they may probably give you someone else. So now you're building your network. And once again, we spoke about that in one of the later slides. Your network is going to be the most important thing for your career search.
Okay, great. I'm going to open it up to Eastern Mass. You're live on the phone. If you want to ask a question over the phone, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Angel. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. How long, once you apply for a job and submit a resume, how long does the company keep your resume on file?
Sure. Great question. And I wish I knew the answer. I think the answer is actually that it goes company by company. Like I have a couple organizations that they keep your information in their system forever. It never gets purged from your system. However, they won't go back in and consider you for another opportunity. You have to reapply. So you're applying to an actual requisition. So let's just say it was a customer service representative job. So you saw that job in February and it had a 30-day run. It was on their website for 30 days. But you see the same job come back up in June. You need to apply again in June. They're not going to go back to your February submission and use that for the June rec. So I believe your resume will probably stay 30, possibly even up to 90 days active on that actual job requisition. But if you see another job that fits your skill set or the same job reposted again, you need to apply again.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I did have another question, but I submitted it online. I don't know if you got it or not.
Okay. I didn't see another question online, but if you want to just go ahead and answer, go ahead. And then just as a heads up to Rachel Young in Louisville, we're going to take your calls next over the phone, so if you want to prepare those. But go ahead, Angel, you can ask another question.
How big a part confidence plays on an interview?
Wow. I think confidence is extremely important, but I do think that overconfidence can be a dagger to an interview, to a successful interview. So I do think you should be confident in your ability to perform the task requested. And a lot of times you don't necessarily have to show that in the form of bravado, but you can just show that in the form of knowledge of, the industry and or the position. So I wouldn't go in overconfident, because ultimately, you're trying to. Here's the thing. I think people hire people on three things, and in my mind, it's experience, aptitude, and personality. So most people, although they like people that are overconfident, I think they question whether or not they want to work with somebody that might step on their toes. So it's a thin line, but I think you should definitely be confident in your abilities, but also share that you're willing to learn. And I think that's really a piece that's important for mature workers, because a lot of times the hiring manager or recruiter may be younger than that person. And it's almost like, listen, I don't necessarily want to work with my parents. I'd like to work with someone that, wants to come in and learn some new things from me as well. So keep that in mind.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Okay, great. We're going to go to Rachel Young. I'm going to unmute your line if you have a question from Rachel. You're in Louisville. Go ahead.
Oh, hi.
Anyone?
This is Ed Davis.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello. Oh, can you read me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thanks again, Mr. Johnson. I really appreciate your presentation, and you're really helping a lot of people sharpen their marketing skills. My question is about the black hole in space. I live in Louisville, and there's a lot of international marketing companies. Basically, they ship things here and they market them online, and I'm trying to get past that, sending an application in and it ends up in the black hole in space, and trying to find a way to get the interview. What do you suggest? I mean, most of these are very high-tech companies, and they're very computer-driven. Sure. And I'm 60 plus years old. So that automatically puts me at a disadvantage, but the type of position that I'm applying for, I would be perfect for, but I can't get past the, the computer sensors.
Okay. So I'm sorry, if you don't mind me asking, what type of position are you applying for?
It's a photographing products in the warehouse of, a company that basically does retail over the internet.
Okay,
worldwide.
Excellent. Okay, excellent. Here's what I'm going to suggest. I don't know, and so there's a process to this that may take a little time, but I think you'll get the desired result. I really think you kind of have to turn yourself into a private investigator. So whether it's using LinkedIn or using their company website, or if they have a company Facebook page, find out where the people from this company are at, what they're involved in. Maybe they're doing a breast awareness walk, a breast cancer awareness walk. So maybe they're doing something like that, but you need to find a way to get close to individuals within the organization to kind of to leverage that to find out more about the opportunities, because it seems like what I'm hearing is that you're attempting to get their attention through applying to jobs at their particular company online, and you're not being noticed that way. So I really think you might want to try to find a way to have a personal relationship, or at least get on the radar of one of the hiring managers and or managers at the organization, and then you probably can express your desire to work for the company, and hopefully they'll be able to leverage someone within their network to assist you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Louisville, if you want to take one more question, we have time for one more over the phone, and then I do have more questions that came in through the queue, so I'm going to get to those as well. But Louisville, do you have another question?
We don't have any more questions.
Okay, great. So the next question that came in the queue, Ken, was from another attendee, and the question was, if you have been out of school for a long period of time, what should you include in the education section, or should you keep education off the resume entirely?
A very, very good question. It's not a requirement. You don't necessarily have to have it on there, especially if your work history indicates that you're knowledgeable of the field, or you have the skills that required. So yeah, I don't believe there would be any issue in not having it. But if you have something, if there's a piece of your education that could show and be a benefit to the employer, yeah, you want to include it. But if not, focusing on the work history. Ultimately, people want to know if you can do what they're asking you to do, and typically that doesn't come through your educational background as much as it comes through the actual practice of doing the job.
Okay, great. And just for housekeeping, we have about 10 minutes left, so anyone who has questions, please use the question window to keep sending those in. Another question that came in, someone asked if you could go back to your slide about the STAR technique.
Yes.
And just elaborate a little bit more about the task section, the T.
Sure.
Just elaborate on that for us a little bit.
No problem. So in the task section, and as it mentions here, you're describing the challenge and what the expectations are. So basically, you're just reiterating what it is that you were trying to accomplish. So if the situation was that you had a customer that was disgruntled over billing issues, your task in turn is going to be, first, I needed to calm the customer down and find out exactly what it is that he or she was upset about. So that was the challenge. And then I needed to know what it was that they wanted. So that's the expectation, what needed to be done. And then, so that's the task piece. You're kind of just explaining. Here's the thing. You want your interview to be conversational. So this is just a way to extend and make it conversational. The best interview that you have is an interview that seems like it was just a conversation and a sharing of information between two people or several people if it was a panel interview. And the task part is that it's you showing, let me step back and kind of explain to you what it was that I was looking to accomplish in this process. And that's the task.
Okay, great. We have a request that I've been spending the last few minutes trying to figure out, and sorry, let me get to this one more question that just popped in.
Sure.
If there are certain, the question is, are there certain professionals or fields that are favorable to older workers? And if so, what are they? Certain industries that are favorable, maybe?
That's a really good question. It's interesting. I've seen a trend here, and I know I actually just in researching this for this presentation, I actually came across a list of like the top 50 employers for seniors or mature workers. I'm seeing a trend here with some of the healthcare companies, especially with some of the what customarily were drugstores, but as they become more of a health and wellness store, they've needed what they call store ambassadors. They've needed seniors to kind of come in because a lot of their customers, need information about, their prescription or different things, over-the-counter stuff, and they're willing to train people to come in and be a store ambassador, but there's certain skill sets that they're looking for, and sometimes those skill sets are only acquired through experience. So they've been very, very receptive of mature workers in that particular industry. But It's a good question. I don't know if I have the complete answer, but I have seen some trends.
Okay, great. I actually got two questions that popped in around the same time, and they're both about resumes.
All right.
So one, could you go back to your resume slide? And another question that came in is there a best practice or is there a best way to make a general resume that covers a wide range of positions and fields? For example, if you're searching a job site and you want to submit to multiple jobs that you see, is there a way to have a general resume? And if so, what would be some best practices for creating a general resume?
So there is a way to have a general resume, and typically what they'll call that is a functional resume. So basically, you're going to position particular skill sets. So it could be, the customer service and organization skills and negotiating skills, and you'll position them at pretty much the top or middle of your resume as key core areas that you cover. And then you'll just list your jobs, not necessarily listing bullets under your jobs, but you'll just list your jobs accordingly. I would like to caution someone against setting up a general resume. Although you hear the term generalist a lot, and you hear it a lot from companies, I'll be completely upfront with you. Although they say being a generalist is great, they're looking for people that know how to solve a particular problem. And those are the people that are successful in getting hired and moving on, or at least getting interviewed and then moving on and getting hired. So I know for some people, it's hard to kind of make that decision. This is what I want to do. But I always suggest that you customize your resume towards a particular skill set and kind of work from that standpoint. Once you get in the door, you can become T-shaped and let people know that you have all these other skills. But initially, most of the times, we just want to get in the door. So be cautious of that.
Okay, great. I don't see any new questions that came in, so I'm going to try to address this request that we got. We actually got a request for someone, if you could kind of do a mock interview over the phone now. So I know that's a little hard because we don't have a job seeker to do that with you, but I thought of a way that maybe you can address that. Can you give us an example of a great answer that you've heard or that you experienced as an interviewer, that when you were interviewing someone, you asked them maybe a behavioral question like you gave before with the star? What was a great answer? How did someone answer that, give an answer or give an example that really got your attention and maybe even helped them land the job? If you can think of an interview that you had that was successful, where the interviewee was very successful, what made them successful? Why was that interview successful? If you could maybe think back to all the interviews you've done over the years.
Sure, yeah. I'm trying to give that some thought, and I know we don't have a ton of time, but so I might not have an exact example, but I will say this. And the most successful interviews have been the interviews where a person can almost predict what it is, where my challenges are, and they answer the questions accordingly. So let's just say, we were asking a question about, all right, so for my particular industry, I'm president of an executive recruiting firm, and our firm, we have a focus on diversity. So, most people have heard that it's really difficult to identify diverse talent in tech. And there's this big initiative by Google and a lot of other people that are involved in trying to identify diverse talent for technology companies. And, we have the challenge as well because we're all in a talent race. All companies are in a race to secure the best and brightest talent. And, an answer that a person gave to me in regards to a process, and he told me, we were talking about recruiting and how we can kind of motivate our team here. And he was going to come on board and be an operations manager. And my concern was that he didn't know much about recruiting. And so he shared with me, he said, listen, I want to apologize because from the interview, I'm getting the impression that you want me to be a recruiter. And he said, listen, I'm definitely not a recruiter. But what I'm really good at is managing people. I was of the belief that you guys already knew how to recruit. You just needed somebody to manage and motivate the people. And that's what I'm really good at. And to be completely honest with you, he was right. We could teach him how to do that particular piece, but the skill set he had that we needed was his ability to manage the process and motivate the people. And he was successful, and we hired him.
I think that's a great example. And, last week we talked about transferable skills, so it sounds like he was able to tap into a skill set that he knew he had in terms of managing people, and he was able to leverage that in his interview for a successful interview and to get the job.
Yes.
So it is 11 o'clock, and I thought that was a jam-packed hour full of great content. I hope everyone got a lot of questions answered. If you want to leave us with your final words, that would be great. And you can go back to your contact information and maybe leave that on the screen.
Okay, great, no problem. I completely understand that this is a very challenging process, and please keep in mind that the rules to job search are changing dramatically, or at least the process to job and career search. They're changing dramatically, and I think it's at breakneck pace. And I know for mature workers, it probably even seems a little more foreign because, typically you didn't grow up with technology at the forefront of job search. Although it seems like that, and although that is very, very true, the foundation of job search still relies around your network. If you can leverage your network, you can be successful in securing the employment opportunity that you're looking for. But sometimes it just takes a little bit of work and a little bit of going that extra mile. And I think if you're able to commit to it and kind of have an understanding, and if you're able to share what it is that you want to do with people, I think those conversations in turn will lead you to the right people within your network that can assist you in securing employment. And sometimes that's just as simple as walking into your local Urban League office or being part of a mature workers program, and those things can expose you to a lot of people that are here to help you achieve just that, a great job opportunity. So I wish everyone much success. I really appreciate everyone for coming on the call today. And, send us an email about the success stories. Some of you guys are going to land jobs very, very soon, and we always like to hear a success story. So kudos to you for sitting on the call, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Ken. On behalf of the Urban League, I definitely want to thank you for your time and all your support. This has been a great session. And, you're very unique. You get to be a part of the very first virtual job readiness program for our mature workers program that's tapping into all of our affiliates. So we're excited that you are a part of that. For all the participants on the call, I know you all have some surveys. Because this is our first time, we'd love to get your feedback, so we can know how this went, how this was successful, any advice that you have moving forward for us. That would be great. And I just want to say thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ken. Thank you to all of our participants. And that's it. Hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.